Hi guys, it's Ben Heath from Lead Guru, and in this video, I'm going to show you how to target your competitors' customers with Facebook ads. Now, why you would want to target your competitors' customers with Facebook ads is fairly obvious, particularly if you have a product or service offering that's better priced, if you can undercut your competition on price, or perhaps you've innovated in some way and the product or service that you offer is superior to your competitor's product or service. Why not advertise to their customers? You know that those people are going to be interested in what you have to offer because they're already buying an equivalent, potentially an inferior equivalent, and being able to put your superior offer in front of them might be a great way and very cost-effective way of acquiring a lot of new customers. So the advantages are obvious. How do you go about doing it? Because it's not as straightforward in many cases as it would seem. So there's basically two methods of doing this. I'm going to show you both, and it depends on how large your competitor is. If your competitor is a big business, a well-known brand, it's a lot easier to target their customers than it is if they aren't. So let's go ahead and jump into the steps. Before I do that, I just want to quickly mention that at the end of this video, I'm going to be telling you about a new free resource about Facebook advertising that I think you're going to find really, really useful. So make sure you stick around to the end of the video for that. But with that said, let's get into the steps on how we go about identifying your competitors' customers and how we go about targeting them so that you can grab them for yourself. So I'm in a demonstration Facebook ad account here. Don't worry about all the example campaigns and stuff. I'm just going to go straight to the methods of doing this, of identifying your customers' competitors and targeting them. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to go into this example CBO campaign here, and I'll create a new ad set. And I'm going to demonstrate the first method, which is the sort of easy way that works part of the time. So let's just call this competitor customer ad set. Okay, let's save that to draft. And now what you want to do, very, very simply, the first thing you want to do before you do anything else is test to see whether your competitor's business is an interest targeting option. So for example, I produce a lot of content on Facebook advertising. So if I was to think, right, who are some of the big content producers to do with Facebook advertising online? One of the guys that comes to mind is John Loomer. So if I go ahead and pop him in here, okay, that hasn't come up. Maybe I've spelt John wrong. I'm sure he's an option. If I put in Loomer, oh yeah, so John without an H. So John Loomer Digital. Now, if I wanted to target his audience, his customers, this would be a fantastic way of doing it because he has come up here as an option, John Loomer Digital. Now he's come up as an interest. And as you can see, if I hover over this, you can see what Facebook says. So the people that will be included in this interest targeting option are people who have expressed an interest in or like pages related to John Loomer. So that's going to include people that like his page primarily. Most of these people are going to be people that like John Loomer's page. Facebook can include some people that have interacted with his content and things like that on Facebook, but primarily it's going to be people who like his page. Now, the people that like his page aren't necessarily going to overlap 100% with his customers. There's going to be people that like his page, then interact with his business on Facebook, that haven't become paying customers, particularly in his scenario because he's very much a content producer. In other businesses, people that like the page are far more likely to be an existing customer, but you can sort of gauge that depending on what sort of industry you're in, what the competitor is, etc., etc. But what you can basically guarantee is that the majority of his customers are going to be in that group. There might be other people in there, but his customers are going to be in there. So using this as an interest targeting option, if I wanted to target John Loomer's customers, let's say I've got better quality content. I mean, by the way, for the record, I think John Loomer produces fantastic stuff. But if I thought I had better quality content or something better to offer than what he offers, then that's something that I could go ahead and test. So the first thing you want to do, and this is particularly effective if your businesses are, if your competitor that you're trying to basically steal customers from is well-known and established brand in your industry. If they're not, when you go to search for them in this little search box here, they simply won't come up as an option. And if they don't come up as an option, you can't use this. If they do come up as an option, great, go ahead and target this audience. That's how you target your customers' competitors with Facebook ads. So that's method number one, very, very straightforward. But as I said, the business name won't always come up here as an interest, particularly if the competitor isn't that large. If that's not the case, if they don't come up, then you want to go ahead and use a second method. So for the second method, assuming that your competitor did not appear as an interest targeting option here at the ad set level, you want to go ahead, click on these three little lines, and go ahead and go over to Audience Insights. I say 3 little lines. Facebook uses different interfaces for different ad accounts. So depending on whether they've changed you over to the new version or kept you in the old version like this is being recorded in 2020. It is an up-to-date video. But yeah, Facebook changes different interfaces at different times. So don't worry about that. Whatever, if things are in a slightly different place, the functionality is still going to be there. And that's the most important thing. Anyway, you want to go ahead and come over to Audience Insights and you want to select everyone on Facebook, okay? Now, the first thing you need to do when using Audience Insights is select the locations that you want to target. So for example, I'm just going to leave this as the US for demonstration purposes, but if I was just advertising in the UK, I would want to change that to just the UK, okay? That makes sense because whatever data is displayed here is going to be representative of that location only. So I'm going to leave it as the US. You want to leave everything else open, age, gender, etc., etc. And then you want to go ahead and pop that competitor's name in here. Now, you'd only reach this stage assuming that the first method didn't work. But let's say, for example, I wanted to pop in John Loomer in here. I'll use him as a demonstration for this video. So for starters, you can find some really interesting information about your competitor's audience, your competitor's customers in this section here. So I can see that, for example, John Loomer's audience is slightly more male than female, bearing in mind that 55% of Facebook users are female, so Facebook is more slightly weighted female. I can see that people are far more likely to be married, they're more likely to be highly educated if they follow John Loomer. So you can find some sort of interesting data in here that you may find useful. But the part that I find really interesting is if you come into page likes, I'm just going to take a second to load, and what you're looking for are these options up here. So these sort of, these are page likes by category. So people that like the John Loomer page, are interested in John Loomer, are also likely to be interested in Ezra Firestone and lead pages and Ad Espresso. Those things all make sense to me, that people will be more likely to be interested in that if they're interested in John Loomer. So what you want to do is make a note of these interest targeting options. You know, Marie Smith, these are names within the industry. So make a note of these targeting options. Try and gather as many as you can. You may need to sense check these. So it might be that some that come up just aren't really that applicable. You know, so these actually all look fairly applicable to me. But for example, you could see that one of them you're going, oh, okay, people that like my competitor like that page, but that page isn't really, that's not really relevant to my audience or something like that. So that's fine. So discard those. Otherwise, make a note of all those. So you grab this top section, and then you also want to come down and you want to grab this this bottom section down here. And here's where you can see affinity scores. So affinity is how likely the audience that you're researching is to like another page. Okay? So for example, people who are interested in John Loomer, so they have a John Loomer interest, are unsurprisingly 10,000 times more likely to like the John Loomer page than the average Facebook user. Okay? No surprise there. But here's the interesting part. They're 8,500 times more likely to like Rick Mulready, 5,000 times more likely to like Social Mouths, etc., and you go down the list. Okay? Now that's really interesting because you want to make a note of all these targeting options. Now, I call these targeting options, some of them will be, and some of them won't be. Okay? So what you want to do is you want to make a note of these, click see more, grab a whole bunch. So if you can grab ones that are larger, you can see Murray Smith's got a bigger one, that's great. But just make a note of all these options here. As I said, you can keep seeing more. If you need to find 20, 30, that's absolutely fine. You make a note of those. Now, let's assume that John Loomer Digital wasn't a targeting option when we went to our ad set. Some of these options from the combinations up here, or the ones you find down here, will be. You will be able to find some that are targeting options, are interest targeting options in at the ad set level when you set up your Facebook ad campaign. And those you can target. Okay, does that make sense? So let's say, for example, let's try and do this as an example. So let's say I was to start up here and I wanted to grab Meet Edgar or Facebook for Business, or let's just jump from one to the other. So if I now jump back into Ads Manager, we can have a look to see whether that's available or not. So now that we're back in Ads Manager, we can go back into our example CBO campaign. We can hunt down our competitor customer ad set. That's the one we were working with before. Click edit. Don't worry about all these warnings. It's a demonstration ad account, so that's all fine. So this is where we were adding in John Loomer, but let's say John Loomer wasn't an option. We went over to Facebook Audience Insights. We researched John Loomer's audience to find those other options, and we could pop those in. So we could pop in, for example, Facebook for Business. Okay, that sounds like a really good option if we want to target those people. Or even Murray Smith was one of the options. We could target that audience instead of. Okay, and if you wanted to have a number of different options, then fine. Now, because we know that Marie Smith is, the audiences overlap very heavily, there's a high affinity score with John Loomer's audience, there's a good chance that this interest targeting option is going to contain John Loomer's customers. Does that make sense? If someone is very likely, the people that like John Loomer's page are very likely to be John Loomer customers. The people that like John Loomer's page are also very likely to be Marie Smith's customers. So by targeting Marie Smith, assuming John Loomer wasn't available, by targeting Marie Smith's as people who are interested in people who are included in this audience, we are going to have a number of John Loomer's customers included in that audience. Now, it's not going to be 100% accurate, and some will be more accurate than others. Okay, so be aware that when you run this, maybe only 10% of that audience will actually be your competitors' customers. But that's still going to be a lot better than trying to find them just through other broad interest targeting options or something like that. This is still a good way to go about targeting your competitors' customers. Something I'd recommend you try. It can get difficult. Targeting competitors' customers on Facebook is only something I'd really recommend if your product or service is demonstrably better than theirs. So does it have a great new feature? Are you better than them on price? Otherwise, you're going to have a real hard time convincing those people to switch from the current business that they're buying the product or service from to yours, unless it's much better. But if it is, this can work very well. I've taken a look at a number of campaigns that have used this strategy of targeting competitors' audiences quite effectively. So yeah, that's how you do it. Those are the two methods. Give that a go and let me know how it goes. Okay, so I said at the beginning of the video, I was going to talk about a free Facebook advertising resource that I think you'd be very interested in. And that's a free training that I've put together called 3 Killer Facebook ad strategies to double or more your revenue. And in that training, I've broken down the 3 Facebook advertising strategies that we use all the time for our clients. We've generated 7+ figures multiple times with each one of these strategies. They're tried and trusted and work very, very well. And I sort of break them down. I demonstrate exactly how to implement them. I also, very importantly, tell you which one you should be using for your business specifically. You know, I give 3 strategies because one of the strategies is the one you want to use if you're advertising a $30 product, but that's not the same as if you're advertising a $10,000 service. You need different strategies, and that's why we use 3. I'm not a big fan of one size fits all when it comes to Facebook advertising. That just doesn't work. As an agency owner myself, I know that straight up doesn't work. So go ahead and check out that training. It's completely free. There will be a link in the video description. Go ahead and click on that and you can watch that. It's about 60-70 minutes long, something like that. And I'd strongly recommend you go through the whole thing because look, at the end of the day, no matter what you're doing with your Facebook advertising, no matter who you're targeting, as we've covered in this video, no matter how engaging your ad creative is, if you do not have the right strategy for your products and services, your Facebook ad campaigns will not work. They will not be profitable. It's not possible. So number one mistake I see people make is using the wrong strategy for their products and services. So go ahead and check that out. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel. I release Facebook advertising related content all the time. And let me know in the comments if you've got any questions. If you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments. That'd be much appreciated. And I will talk to you soon. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye-bye.